Doctors of Reddit, what is your most surprising I can't believe I need to have this conversation with an adult story? My mom tells it so much better, but here's a try. My mom was the head nurse at a clinic here in Houston in the 80s. She worked for an old WWII doctor that had gone into private practice, old school GP, when he returned back to the States. Well, one afternoon she told me that they had a patient come in that was running a high fever and was complaining of pain in her pelvic area. Mom also tells me that there was a stench coming from the woman's lap that could only be described as enough to gag a maggot off a meat wagon. She begins to interview the patient, who told her that her and her boyfriend had been sexually active and that she has been in pain since. She thought that the woman may have contracted an STD and asked her to undress and wait for the doctor to examine her. The doctor arrives and closes the door, only to reopen it a few seconds later, mentioning about the need for fresh air. The doctor noticed that there was a vaginal discharge, began to question the patient about her sex life. Was it protected, non-protected, etc. According to mom, the patient told her, "No doc, we always use a rubber." The doctor looked down, then noticed that there was a small rubber band extending from the woman's vagina. The doctor reached in with his gloved hand and pulled it out. What came next can only be described as a magician pulling the magic cloth out of someone's mouth. One rubber band after another came out over the course of the next 10 minutes. Finally, once they were all removed, the doctor had the talk with the woman about sex education and that rubber bands were not a successful contraceptive and not what they meant by wearing a rubber, and then wrote her a prescription for ABX. TLDR, mom was a nurse who had a patient use rubber bands as a contraceptive device who ended up with a severe infection and required medical attention to get them removed. My mother is a doctor. She once told me this story about a patient she had. She serves low-income people, so typically immigrant/minorities, usually without health insurance. The man is from Central America and is there for a normal checkup, typical of most patients. He has fairly high blood pressure. However, this man is also having bowel problems. So my mother asks, "What color and consistency is your feces when you need to use the bathroom?" The man has no idea what she's talking about. My mom tries again. "Your poop? What color and or consistency is it typically?" The man still has no clue what she's saying. He understands a bit of English. She tries again. "Your doo-doo? Nothing. Your fecal matter? Nothing. Your poo? Nothing. Not number 1. But number 2? Nothing." Finally she asks, "It's not liquid when it comes out, but it's more solid, you know." The man has an epiphany. "OHH. You mean sh?" He says. "Yes, your sh." So my highly educated professional mother has to continue the rest of the checkup asking about his sh. "What color is your sh? Is it more wet? Does it hurt when you take a sh?" This went on for a fair amount of time. My mom nearly burst out laughing by the end of it. Absolutely amazing what a mind language barrier can do. My brother is a general practitioner in rural Tennessee. Enough said. Right. He says most of his patient visits go about like this. MD: well, person, you're pre-diabetic, have high blood pressure, and are complaining about joint pain. Have you been exercising and cutting out sugar and carbs? Person: yeah, I have. Doc, but it doesn't seem to help. Do you have any better meds you could prescribe? MD: well, let's talk about your diet. How much water do you drink a day? Person: I don't like water, so I get extra rice in my sweet tea every day to make sure I get enough water. MD explains how that's not enough water by a long shot. How much sweet tea are you drinking every day? Those can have a lot of sugar in them. Person: well, I get a large one from a D/McDonald's/wherever on my way to work with my breakfast, and another one on my way home for dinner. Then I have a glass or two when I get home. MD: well, that's a lot of sugar and a lot of fast food. If you are eating it twice a day, what do you eat at home? Person: I don't like to cook, so I usually don't eat anything but Little Debbie snack cakes at home. MD: those have a lot of sugar too. Person: I thought that all I had to do was cut out Mountain Dew. Now you're saying I can't eat my food or my snacks. What are you suggesting I do? Eat salads for every meal? Why can't you just up my meds? Doctor here. I think the most frustrating I've seen since I was a resident was a very pretty, like stunningly pretty, 17-year-old with what appeared to be normal, loving, affluent parents. She had a tumor in her pelvis, rhabdomyosarcoma, that we could resect to potentially cure her. The parents declined. Also declined chemo, and said they want to try holistic medicine, because that made more sense to them. I last saw her 3 years ago. She was getting huge lymph nodes removed from her groin, because they were unsightly. Obviously metastatic disease. Parents did not want primary tumor removed, and again declined chemo. I see 100 patients/week probably. Lots of devastatingly sad cases. But I still think about that girl, listening to her parents, costing her life. I bet she's dead now. I can assure people, doctors are not trying to swindle you, give you unnecessary care, or have some ulterior motive in this sort of setting. 99.99% of doctors are treating patients the same way they'd treat family, so try not to be dense. We want to help. EMT here. I had a grown adult try to explain to me that someone else his pants got toned out for finger pain at a homeless shelter at 0200. We get there, and the guy jumps in the truck with very mild swelling to the tip of his right index finger. Here's how the conversation went. Me: so what happened? Patient: I smoked some meth, and then I fell asleep in my bunk, and I woke up next to my bunk and my finger hurt and there was poop. Me: there was poop. Did you fall and poop? Patient: no, like in my pants. Me: so you pooped your pants? Patient: no, it wasn't me. Me: so let me get this straight. You smoked meth, took a nap, rolled out of bed in your sleep, hurt your finger, and someone else came along and shin your pants before you woke up? Patient: yeah, it wasn't me. This will be a long story. When I was an internal medicine resident, I came across a very nice 50-year-old Dominican lady. She was well mannered, but one could tell she was not the sharpest tool in the shed. As I was prepping her chart for our first visit, I noticed that she'd been seen by every single digestive disease MD in our hospital system. Not only that, she'd had every single procedure in the book, ranging from endoscopies up both holes and culminating in an exploratory laparotomy. You're opened up to basically look inside you when we have no clue what's going on. All of this because for years she had one single complaint. She reported severe gnawing pain in her stomach. At this point I should mention that she was Spanish speaking only. Not only that, she had a very heavy Dominican accent, and I was the first Hispanic doctor to ever see her. My first language is Spanish and even I had difficulty understanding her. So she comes in, and after exchanging some first time pleasantries, I politely ask her how she's doing. Sure enough, although she was smiling and said she felt well, she pointed at her belly and said it was biting again and asked for the cream to kill it. At this point I got intrigued. Her medication list only mentioned a cream used for herpes breakthroughs. The previous fellow only mentioned in his note that in every single visit she only asked for the cream and nothing else. When I asked what she meant by the biting and what she intended to do with the cream, she very calmly tells me she intended to stick the cream up her A in order to kill the bird living inside her. After delving more deeply into her story, it turns out she didn't have a medical condition. Ever since she was a little girl, she believed that after eating whole quail egg, the bird had spawned inside her and gnawed away in her insides whenever she was very hungry. After a short visit to psych, she was diagnosed with a somatic type delusional disorder. No amount of medication or psychotherapy will cure her, but she was still a fully functional mother of 2 who paid her taxes and had 2 part-time jobs. I reached out to every digestive disease doctor in our hospital system once more to make sure she never receives an inappropriate invasive intervention. I've been following her now for 3 years and she's happy as one can be, considering she has a bird living inside her. TLDR. Lady complains of pain in her belly. Worst case of lost in translation ensues. Gets very invasive medical procedures. Turns out she's just cuckoo. Not a doctor yet, but a tech for 2 years. Mom comes in with her baby plus 2 more older kids. Complains that the baby hasn't pooped in a while and won't stop crying. As I'm settling them in with one of the nurses, the baby is bawling, like opera singer lungs bawling. Suddenly mom whips out a white plastic shopping bag and sticks an end in the kid's mouth. Says this is the only way she stops crying. Nurse and I share a look and immediately order an emergency x-ray on the kid's stomach. Turns out she had ingested a good amount of these bags, and it was blocking up in her stomach. Big deal. Potentially life-threatening. When we confront the mom about her baby feeding habits, her only words of defense are, "Well, I checked all over the bag and I couldn't find anything that said non-edible." TLDR, mom had been letting her baby teeth on plastic bags because she didn't know they weren't edible.